This YouTube provides some core ideas around best practices in cascading strategy down the organization. The trick here is we need to create alignment as we move from the executive offices down to the front lines dealing with customers and ensuring that everyone is aligned and working consistently against the same strategy and objectives. There really are two objectives that we have to work towards. One is make sure that how we do the reporting is aligned with people's and organizations' responsibility. And secondly, and perhaps most importantly, making sure that our view changes as there's a change in strategy. So for example, if I move from one division that's trying to penetrate new markets to another division that is, for example, looking for share of wallet, we need to make sure that we know that difference in strategy before we begin trying to analyze that new area's performance. So if we take a look at a traditional organization where I go from the executives down to teams and individuals, there are a series of layers on how reporting should work. So for example, at the executive level, we might need some form of reporting that describes what they need to understand to run the organization. And as we take a look at this, they need some sort of drill down to go from what they need to know to the next level of detail down, the next question that they might ask. And what's important to understand is there's a difference between those two, and leadership has to be careful not to make decisions on behalf of these people at the next level down just because they're looking at information from that level to understand how the organization is performing. Now, we may need to even pull information from 2 or 3 layers further down the organization in order to fully populate this drill down of additional detail. But the reason for pulling that data is to support the calculations of the L2, and those numbers are not actually part of the L2 dashboard itself. This is sort of a repeating system. As we go down to the next level, let's say in this example, the SMT, again, they're going to have a level 1 and level 2. To a great extent, they will need some sort of drill down capability to understand what's happening in centers inside of their area of responsibility. They need to make sure and be careful not to make decisions on behalf of the centers, even though they're looking at center level data to understand cause and effects. And of course, we will be pulling data from even further down the organization. And we need to be careful that we're using that data just to create that L2 dashboard. So it's important to note we have an L1 dashboard that supports executives. We also have an L1 dashboard that takes a look at what the strategy is at the SMT level and reports its performance. And this repeats again the next level down. So again, for example, the centers, you might have a scorecard, a strategy map describing what the center is accountable for, and its L2. And so, same thing. We need to be careful we don't make decisions on behalf of those levels of the organization below us and so forth. Now, at a certain level, we're going to move from a strategy to just a straight drill down. So to use other words, at their L1 level, I may have some strategic objectives that the department's accountable for, specific things with different priorities and so forth. And the next level down is going to give us some information about how the teams are performing in aid of that. But the next level down may not have a strategy. It may be just drilling deeper into the same idea. So an example could be if I'm running, say, a franchise, a McDonald's, I may have a strategy that relates to that individual store. But as I get down to a shift level or a team or individuals, the people running the drive-through window, they just have a bunch of tactical measures. What's the cycle time for serving a customer? How many cups need to be left in inventory? What the accuracy of change has to be, and so forth. So I don't need a scorecard. I'm just drilling deeper in detail around the L2 data to come up with sort of an L3. So again, it's important to understand that we have an L1 at each level of management where there's accountability at the strategic level. Now, we also need to know just another couple of bits of information. Thing one is how we show the information is slightly different. At the L1 level, I need some representation of strategic importance as well as performance. I need to understand that share of wallet is more important than penetrating new markets for this part of the organization. The drill down, the dashboard level, typically doesn't have that. It's just providing additional detail around each one of those strategic measures to understand where it came from, to answer the next question. And this will repeat. At L1, it will also have a strategy reflection of what SMT needs to do, and then the center level data for SMT's level 2 will have a dashboard showing some of the supporting data. The other thing to note is there's a time dimension. So the executive committee is typically looking out, say, 1 to 5 quarters. The SMT is looking out, say, 1 to 5 months. The centers might be looking at 1 to 5 weeks. The departments, 1 to 5 days, and so forth. Now, these time horizons aren't necessarily accurate, but they're indicative. The idea is the more senior you are in the organization, the farther out in time that you need to look. And the reporting structures need to contain data that reflects those time horizons. What does this mean? It means that as we cascade that strategy down, there's a couple of things that happen. One is at each level that there's a unique strategy. I need to have an L1 that describes the strategy. Secondly, the L2 is providing supporting information, but it's not the complete picture of what happens at the next level down, but rather the amount of information needed to populate what the more senior team needs. The reporting structure and how we report it looks different, and as we move down the hierarchy, the level of time that we're looking at gets shorter and shorter. And at a certain point in time, we move from strategic to tactical drill downs. And again, the metaphor is, think of the dashboard of your car. It doesn't tell you the strategy that you have around being in the car. It just gives you the data relating to that particular journey. So this structure allows us to make sure that the reporting lines up to responsibility. As we drill down to a different level of strategic ownership, we need a different strategy statement about what they're accountable for doing. And secondly, we need to make sure that we change our view as we drill down. So as I move from the strategic view at the executive level to the strategic level at, say, a center, I need to be very purposeful in leaving this scorecard or dashboard and moving into this one. I need to sign out of it or sign into a new one if it's in the software, go to a new report deck if it's hard copy, but I need to have some event to formalize the step from one structure, strategy, and way to interpret data to the next one. If you want to learn more, please join us at pm2consulting.com underneath the Insights tab.